Hi, I'm Lori, and I'd like to talk about carbon-based fuels, including ethanol and the concept of peak oil. Okay, first of all, fossil fuels are fuels that are mined around the world with the intent of producing energy. And let's just say the world has gotten a little more than they had bargained for. Fossil fuels are ultimately carbon-based, and when incinerated to produce energy, they release massive amounts of carbon. And CO2 is released into the atmosphere and can make our lives just a little bit harder, creating the greenhouse effect, anthropogenic global warming, and unsafe air conditions. So, there are three types of fossil fuels: coal, petroleum, and natural gas. So, coal is for the production of electricity and has slowly diminished in demand since the introduction of other fuels that are arguably cleaner. Because coal has a 70 to 90% carbon by mass, which is a lot of unwanted CO2. Petroleum and products are oil and gas, and it exceeds coal because of its portability. 71% of energy used in the US transportation sector is supplied by petroleum. And then natural gas. Natural gas is a hydrocarbon gas mixture that is produced by hydraulic fracturing, or fracking for short. It is relatively clean compared to other fossil fuels, but arguably worse because of its complications, which include excessive consumption of water, disturbing environment, and potential to cause small earthquakes. So it's kind of worse for the environment by how it's made rather than when it's burned. So, how are scientists fixing CO2? They are combating it using terrestrial sequestration, which is when plants intake CO2 for us. And to help them, scientists are helping with reforestation, no-till farming, wetland management, and then there's also geologic sequestration, which is when you inject CO2 into deep underground rock layers, which is rock injection. Okay, and how can we fix it? So we can make greener choices. We can recycle, turn the TV and lights off when you leave the house, but use less electricity. We can ride the bus, carpool, even use an E85 compatible car, which brings me to ethanol, which is an E85 blend with gasoline. So it's the new renewable fuel sweeping the nation. So ethanol is a non-fossil fuel that is produced from a variety of agricultural crops, such as sugarcane, corn, and wheat, which makes it renewable. It's blended with gasoline to produce fuel, which has environmental advantage compared to regular gas. A low blend ethanol gas mixture produces 3 to 4% fewer emissions than gas, and a high blend produces 6 to 8% fewer. It is great for the economy because it has provided new forms of revenue for farmers, and to keep up with demand, 100 million liters of wheat-based ethanol production requires 300,000 tons of feed grain per year. Some models of ethanol-compatible cars include GM's large trucks and SUVs, the Buick Lucerne, and Pontiac G6, though the Chevrolet Monte Carlo, Impala, and HHR work also, and among others. So if you're interested, I suggest looking into it. So now, peak oil. Oil is a limited resource, and there is a beginning and an end. Peak oil is when extraction rates max out and then begin to decline. After a while, supply decreases while cost and demand increases. It is impossible to know exactly when the peak is because there is no way to know how much oil is in the ground worldwide. And it would be difficult to discern when the extraction rates of it would be difficult to discern what the actual extraction rates are of every oil company combined. Earlier predictions were that the peak oil would be reached in the late 1980s, then in 2000, then in 2005, and it keeps being pushed back because we have not seen a significant decline in supply. No matter when it is going to happen, we need to think of better alternatives to oil. and invest in science to make the invention of these alternatives easier. So either way, we run out, economy crashes, global warming happens, etc., or oil is conserved, demand shrinks, clean and renewable alternatives are produced. There are not many perfect alternatives to oil, but here are some examples of new energy that are actually being used today. So there are solar, wind, and ethanol, which we talked about already, or there's nuclear power, which provides 20% of domestic energy to the US and 80% of domestic energy to the world's leading country, France. Nuclear power is on the rise and is proven cheaper to run than solar, wind, or even our Manitoban choice of hydropower. Nuclear power does have a downside. It does produce lots of waste, which is hard to destroy. And hydropower, which is what we use in Manitoba, it captures the energy of falling water to generate electricity. With the work of a turbine and generator, kinetic energy is converted to mechanical and then to electrical energy to be distributed in transmission lines all across Manitoba. And the thing is, this requires lots of waterways, which we are thankful to have here in Manitoba, but other areas are forced to use other options. So, in conclusion, we've learned that fossil fuels don't really work out to be in the best interest of the world. They are non-renewable and a detriment to the earth. We have a responsibility to help fix it for ours and future generations. Scientists have terrestrial and geologic sequestrian so far, and we can do smaller things ourselves to make our carbon footprint smaller. Peak oil is a thing, so we need to look to greener alternatives like using ethanol blend gasoline, using more hydropower, or even trying nuclear energy. So thank you for listening, and I hope and look forward to answering all of your questions or hearing theories of your own. When do you think peak oil happens or is going to happen? Do you already make greener choices? Maybe we can talk about it in the discussion. Thank you.